If you're here, you have struggled sometimes with giving a presentation, or you just don't know where to start when giving a presentation. You don't know how to prepare for one, much less how to deliver the presentation. However, you ended up here, this is exactly the information that you need to give effective presentations that leave the audience understanding what you wanted to communicate, but also with you feeling more confident in your presentation skills. So let's get started. This presentation is focused on how to create an effective presentation, a step by step guide for project managers. Now, if you're not a project manager, hold on, don't leave. All of this information you can apply to your presentations in whatever field that you are in. So, agenda, what are we going to go over today? An introduction of what are the problems with most presentations. Then we'll talk about the steps needed to create an effective presentation, how to go from good to great presentations, taking action. What is something that you can start doing today to improve your presentation preparation, but also the delivery of your presentations? And then a roadmap to mastery. During project execution, project managers will be actively working on their projects with their project teams, with other teams, and most importantly, they will be communicating the progress of the project to the customer or client during status meetings. As part of this status meeting, using a presentation will help to guide the discussion of what a project manager would want to communicate to their customer. It allows them to stay focused on the most important project updates that they are trying to convey. And it also ensures that the right information is delivered at the right time to the right person, which in this case would be your most important stakeholder, the customer. What are the problems with most presentations? If you have given a presentation before and you weren't sure what you were going to talk about, you went into it with a loose outline of topics that you were going to cover, and then you just added slides in just to make it fit, or you didn't have a story that you wanted to tell with your presentation, that's very key. What story are you trying to tell? If you don't have some of these building blocks to a presentation, you already know going into it, you're most likely going to be winging it, and hopefully you'll get to the other end unscathed. Some of the things that contribute to this are having too many topics that you're covering. You've got inconsistent formatting and structure for your updates. So instead of listening to what you're saying, attendees are finding all of the mistakes on the slides. You might be including updates that haven't been reviewed or discussed with your internal project team. So you're sharing things that the subject matter experts and the team members that may be attending the call weren't even sure that you are going to discuss. So they might be caught off guard if you say, "Oh, so and so, do you have anything else to add?" Well, they weren't planning on talking about that. So sometimes that can be a way where your presentation introduces problems that didn't need to be there. And then this is a really big one. It's a slide that looks more so like a short story rather than short bullet points. So writing paragraphs instead of bullet points, or even using images and graphics, is a surefire way to lose your audience in reading through your slides rather than listening to what you're saying. 5 key steps to creating a presentation that will communicate what you want, that will allow you to stay on track, and that the stakeholder will be able to follow and understand in coordination with the things that you are saying. Number one, use a standard outline tailored to your specific customer. This is very important because over time, it becomes easier and easier for you to create, for example, status update presentations because you have established a standard format. Not only do you have a template that you can reuse frequently to give these presentations and these updates, but your customer starts to expect, they start to know what to expect in your presentation. And that gives the focus to listening again to what you're saying rather than reading through the slides and picking apart what's in the slides. They already know what to expect. Number two, identify the key topics that your customer needs to be updated on now and before the next status meeting. So you don't want to leave room for surprises. Of course, there may be something that comes up that you did not anticipate or expect to be part of your meeting or part of the questions that come up. But as the project manager, when you're preparing your presentation, for example, for a status update meeting, you'd be looking to communicate, well, how's everything going right now? But let's look ahead to what's coming next in the short term and include those in your presentation. So identify the key topics. That's step number two to creating a great presentation. Number three, gather input from your internal project team. No reason for you as the project manager to be winging it and going it alone. Your project team is there to help you with hot off of the press updates, important things that you may have. Involve your project team in identifying item number two, the key topics to update. So gather that input and then you consolidate that all together into a cohesive picture of what you are going to share with your customer and anticipating questions that you might get from the customer. Number four, focus. Focus on updates related to the current status, next steps, and clarifying questions. Now, what you might see here is not only do these steps build upon each other, but they also have some interdependency. Gathering that information from your internal project team allows you to also understand and clarify what's coming up in the project. As the project manager, you are doing a number of things to ensure that the project is continually moving forward, and you're not always able to track every single status of what's going on in your project. That's what your project team is for. And so, one of the things that you'll want to do when you're creating and preparing a presentation is you would want to focus in on very specific items that you want to discuss. This allows you to control the discussion of the presentation. It allows you to help the customer to navigate where things are in the project, but it also gives you, again, the opportunity to tell a story. And then number five, to round everything out when you're creating a presentation, review for consistency before finalizing. This is where quality control comes in, and it is the star of the show because you may have done all of the previous steps, number one through four. And if you get to the end of developing this presentation and you do not do a quality control review, possibly a couple of quality control reviews, especially if you're making tweaks in between those quality control reviews. You may get to the presentation, and even though your content is solid, the information that you're communicating is clear and concise, if you have a presentation that has typos or grammatical errors or formatting errors, all of those types of things will draw the attention of your audience away from what you're saying, and they will focus in on what's on the screen. And what you want them to do is actually to listen to what you're saying and then also see what's on the screen as reinforcing the things that you're saying, and vice versa. They should work together. So, these five steps repeated every time you create a presentation will Ensure that you are on your way to creating effective presentations to deliver to your customers and any other audience for that matter. How do you go from good to great? Well, if you're following the 5 steps referenced in the last slide, you're very much on your way. But there are a couple of things that will absolutely set your presentation apart from the rest. And those are the 3 things listed right here on the screen. Formatting. Consistency, consistency, consistency is the key. Use consistent font type, font size, spacing, the tone. Maintain a formal tone in language used for updates. So, not casual conversation. Those are things that you will convey in the verbal part of your presentation. As you're talking through the slides and you're giving the updates, you may be more informal with the things that you're saying, but on the slide, ensure that you maintain a formal tone. You also may be sharing these slides for reference. So you don't want to have mixed tone in your slides because then you also don't know who will end up receiving those. So formatting a consistent format, building on top of that, a formal tone, and then rounding out with balance, incorporating a balance of on screen text and talking points. This will allow for your presentation to not read like a novel or a short story. You want it to be something that if you didn't hear the presentation, you would be able to follow along, but you don't want it to be paragraph upon paragraph upon paragraph. That's actually a document that you would want to prepare and send out, as opposed to a presentation where you are trying to get to the specifics in a discrete period of time and you want to communicate the information as best as possible. So these 3 things will help you to go from a good presentation to a great presentation, and done consistently, they'll be excellent. Taking action up to this point, you can make note of. You definitely want to write down those 5 steps so you know what your repeatable process is going to be, but something tangible that you can use in hand or on computer to ensure that you have consistently effective presentations is to have a standard outline for all of the presentations that you use. All of the things mentioned, the use case that we're using today is a project status meeting that a project manager would be giving to a customer. Depending on the other audiences that you might be presenting to, the outline, it could be a little bit different. But going with the example of providing status updates to a customer, you want to have a standard outline that has an agenda slide. You review previous action items that came up from the last meeting. You have very discrete and specific project milestone topic slides. So, not all of the detailed information is included here, but what are those key milestones? What are those key tasks for your project? You could have one, or you could have 3, 4, 5. It depends on what stage you are in the project. So the number of milestone topic slides can vary as you are moving through the execution phase of your project, but you always want to have a standard approach to how you communicate progress. And a way to do this is to have project milestone topic slides, and then you include the updates and the information underneath each of those topics. Of course, you want to highlight risks and issues so that your customer is aware of the challenges that you might be encountering or those that you anticipate to come up. And then closing things out with the next steps. What can they anticipate for the next meeting? This all allows you to tell a story, to control the conversation, because you don't want to have topics and discussions going all over the place. Now, how do we master? Well, there have been breadcrumbs on the roadmap to mastery all throughout this video. But to summarize those up into 3 points, it's revision, repetition, and refinement. So, revision means leaving time between your initial development to finalizing your presentation. This allows you to update the presentation flow, tone, and formatting. Next is repetition. We just talked about identifying a standard outline that works best for each specific customer. As a project manager, you might be managing more than one project, and the way that each customer best receives and processes information might be different. So you may need to slightly customize your standard presentation outline according to the customer, but you always want to hit those key project milestones in all of your presentations, and then reuse it throughout the project, because that allows them to get familiar and to start to anticipate how they're going to receive information, how it's going to be communicated, and it will make the process smoother and smoother as you go along throughout project execution. And then finally, refinement. Always do a white glove quality control review of your presentations before you send them out, before you get ready to share them during a presentation. You don't want mistakes, information that you intended to delete and forgot about it. You don't want those small things to distract your audience from what you're talking about. You want to retain the control of the updates by allowing everyone to pay attention to what you're saying and not be so distracted with all of the issues that are on the slides because you didn't do the quality control steps. So, roadmap to mastery, revision, repetition, and refinement. All of these things combined together will allow you to give even more effective, impactful presentations. And with practice, giving presentations will become like secondhand for you. You will get more comfortable. You'll be able to have more off the cuff remarks because you're so clear on the focus of your presentation, because you're using a consistent outline. You know what's going to be coming up next, and it allows you more latitude as you're giving the presentation to talk more about the things that aren't on the screen, because you have created a standard that your customer is comfortable with and you also are comfortable with. So, if you are ready to take your presentations to the next level, subscribe to Project Management Quick Tips channel. More information like this will be coming out, as well as discussion about resources. And speaking about resources, if you would like a free customizable presentation template that you can use yourself to customize for your project, send an email to info@pmquicktips.com. I would love to hear if this has helped you to improve your presentation skills. I'm sure it will, but let me know. Until next time, taking action. All of the things mentioned